And where's my share button? There we go. Okay, so a couple of things we wanted to talk about today include how to get some money for free, because money's good. And there are a couple of different ways to do that. So one of the ways that you can do that is actually a $10,000 grant that the government is giving away to us. In order to be eligible for this, you have to be a small business. You have to have fewer than 500 employees, and all of us do. Basically, you do have to, you got to file taxes as a business, and we all do that. So pretty simple. And I'm going to send an email out after the meeting to everybody with the links to the websites, so you know where to go to do this. But I just want to kind of get you started on it. So this is federal disaster. It says federal disaster loans for businesses, private nonprofits, homeowners, and renters. This is actually the streamlined process. It's like super easy. I did it this morning. It took me maybe 10 minutes, including looking up what my income was last year and what my cost of labor was. So all you have to do is choose what you are. And in this case, the answer is going to be the same for all of us. We're a business with not more than 500 employees. We're an individual, so you can choose that, but we don't actually have employees. We're all independent contractors. So you're an individual who operates a sole proprietorship with or without employees, or as an independent contractor. So you click that button. That's the very beginning of this. And then you have to check every single one of these. You cannot be behind on child support, but I think, and I assume that nobody is, but other than that, I think the answers for everybody are really simple. Yes, all of this applies. You got to check every single one of these before you can get on to the next step. Oops. Read them when you do this for yourself. I actually did read all this stuff this morning. And then you just click continue and you just go through the process. I mean, it's really simple. Everything that's required has a red bar next to it and an asterisk. And just go through and answer all the questions. The only two that are going to matter to us, except Steve, this one might work for you too. You have to put in your gross revenue, how much money you made for the 12 months that ended January 31st, and your cost of goods sold for the same period. So, you need to look that up and put that in, but they're not asking you to attach any documentation or anything else. This one is for rental properties. Steve, if you've lost rents due to disaster,
I lost you on my screen.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
I don't know where you went.
Can you see me okay, Mark?
I mean, I lost your whole screen. All I see are your four faces over to the right.
Huh. And the whole screen's gone?
The whole screen's gone.
Stop your video again, Steve, and restart it. See if that clears your glitch. And you can see my screen okay, right, Saren? Okay. Yeah, so it's video on your end, Steve. And there will, of course, be a replay. So if you've lost rents due to the disaster, you need to fill that one in as well. But then all the rest of this on this page is about nonprofits. And then you've got to put in your primary business address, which is presumably your house, your business phone, which, for most of us is just our mobile phone, email, when you became a business, and how long you've owned it for. Both of those should be the same date. And then in this one for the business activity, you click in the box and just scroll down. Answer is going to be real estate for almost all of us, actually. And then under this one, I know for Sarah and Mark, it'll be none of the above, or none of the below rather. The other two choices are property management / realty and real estate developers. So I'm not sure if that would apply to you, Steve, or not. And then number of employees would be 0 unless you've got actual employees. I can't go further without filling in the entire form, but this is just how simple this is. It's really easy. The whole thing will take you like 10 or 15 minutes. And this is the one that is it's a grant. They say it's a loan, but it's actually a grant because on the initial page it says very clearly that it doesn't have to be repaid. So there's $10,000, and it looks like it takes a couple of weeks to get it. So that's the first one. And then the next piece of free money is unemployment. Normally, as real estate professionals, we're not eligible for unemployment, but during disasters, we are. And so this actually took me a little bit longer. I did this last week, and I think it took me about 30 minutes to get through the whole thing. It's a lot of pages, but you can do the whole thing online. So what you have to do is register for the benefit program online, and that's basically is the username and password kind of thing. And then it'll say very clearly, you want to file for unemployment, and you go through a couple of pages of it before it says to you that that you're not an employee, that you're actually an independent contractor, and it's perfectly okay. I mean, they're expecting us to be doing this. So those are two ways to be able to get some money that we otherwise aren't getting money. So that's the first part of this. The second part is just getting a little bit of practice with Zoom. And then with my guys, I want to talk, and if you want to leave, Steve, that's fine. If you want to stay, that's fine too. I want to talk a little bit about all the new C.A.R. forms for the whole pandemic that we have to deal with. So before I move on, do we have any questions about free money?
I'm gonna jump off and I'll get the replay after the fact, Sally, and I'll look at these
Cool.
web pages here now.
All righty, sounds great. Thanks, Steve.
You got it. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So was the free money part helpful for you guys? Yeah? Cool. All right, let's talk some forms. I need to open my Zip Forms account so we can look at that. I now have my, this is, come on, beat it, kitty. Beat it. This is like the hardest part of my world right now. Try to keep my cat out of my camera. All right, go. I also learned this little trick for Zip Forms guys. When we get to this stage, typically, if you click the button here, it opens in full screen, which personally I hate because I don't like anything in full screen. But if I go back up to my link here and click my link again, it opens in the tab instead. So just thought I'd pass that one on. Oh, come on. Really? All right, you got to get down. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with the CVA. Which has already been updated since they first issued it. So that didn't take too long. Okay, so actually, I guess I need to go full screen here. I thought there was an, here we go. There we go. So can you see that okay? Good. So the coronavirus addendum or amendment, it can be either. So the difference between an addendum or an amendment is that an addendum is something that is written while the contract is not complete. So for example, if you're writing an RPA and you include the coronavirus addendum, it's an addendum at that point because you don't have a fully executed contract. But if you've already got an RPA in place and then you decide to add the coronavirus addendum or amendment, at that point, it's an amendment. So it could be either one. Does that make sense? Cool. So it's heavily weighted in favor of the buyer. So it's really important to have a conversation with sellers so that they understand what this is really all about. Talks about the unprecedented impacts that we're having from the coronavirus and so forth and so on. What's really important is to recognize that it's contractually addressing an unforeseen coronavirus circumstance. We are not giving people, we're not giving them the opportunity to just cancel a contract for no reason unrelated to the coronavirus by having this addendum or amendment in place. It has to be related to coronavirus. And so paragraph 3 says that if either the buyer or the seller is affected by an unforeseen coronavirus circumstance, the affected party shall deliver to the other the NUCC, which is the Notice of Unforeseen Coronavirus Circumstance. We'll look at that one as well. That identifies what the issue is. And it could be that you're actually attaching the NUCC at the same time that you're asking for this to be signed, if indeed it were an amendment rather than an addendum. So you've got 3 choices here in paragraph 4. You can have A and B, or you can have C. So A is an extension of time for buyer to remove contingencies. And you're going to choose what those are: loan, investigation, appraisal, or other, write it in. And B is an extension of time for buyer or seller to close escrow. So it's, like the boilerplate is 30 days, but you can write in whatever you want to, whatever number of days. Now, what's really interesting about this whole addendum is if this paragraph is invoked, no demand to close escrow, and this is, I want to go back to, no demand to close escrow is needed in order to move forward, okay? And in the case of extension to remove contingencies, no notice to buyer to perform which would otherwise be applicable, is required. And in this case, buyer's deposit will be returned to the buyer minus fees and costs, which is what's standard. Or C, you can have a mutual cancellation, and in that case, it's canceled upon acceptance by both parties, and unless otherwise agreed, buyer's deposit will be returned to the buyer minus fees and costs. This CVA form with this paragraph invoked is an irrevocable joint instruction to the escrow holder to cancel the escrow and release the deposit as provided. However, when we did the Legal Live webinar on this with C.A.R., they said very clearly that although this does constitute joint escrow instructions, the escrow holder may actually want a regular cancellation form to satisfy them, in which case give them that as well. And then the following additional terms shall apply. I haven't been able to think of any case yet of what to be writing in there, but if we've got something on a case-by-case basis, let's just talk about it and see if it makes sense to do that, okay? So this is a quick rundown on this one. I think it probably should be part of every contract at this point. And then the NUCC is this one. So this is related to the CVA. So the CVA has to be in place or issued with this at the same time. Put in the date, check who's issuing it, whether it's the buyer or the seller. And then you talk about here, the bunch of boxes to check for what the unforeseen circumstance might be. So it could be, loan related, so like loss of income. Can't get a notary. We're working on getting virtual notaries, by the way. So notary appointments will be done like on Zoom calls. But I don't know how soon that's going to happen yet. Or it could be a lender delay. We're seeing a lot of slow appraisals because of this. And that's going to become another issue that we're going to talk about with the next couple of forms. So it could also be shelter in place or stay at home or government issues that you can't get inspections done. You can't do a final verification of property condition. You can't get movers. Apparently right now you can still get movers, but I think that's going to change. And then it could just be personal impact. Somebody had COVID-19 or they had a hospitalization or whatever. And then there's other. So, other can be whatever it is. If it's not something that's already covered under any of these prior ones, write in what's appropriate. And then you have to say what the impact is on the affected party, and you need to provide some kind of verification of the unforeseen issue. Okay, could be a statement, or if there's like a loan denial, you can just attach that letter, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? Questions? Nope. Yeah, obviously you're going to want to read these in total and get a clear understanding of them, but I just kind of wanted to give a brief overview today, so we kind of knew where we were. Then we've got another new one that's called an RLA. CAA, I think. Let's see if I've got the right. Yeah, RLA CAA. So any existing listings should have this document attached to the listing, even if it wasn't written that way originally, because there's a lot of important stuff in here actually. So it's got a similar, boilerplate paragraph about all of the effect of coronavirus on the industry. But part of what this does is it talks about property showings. So seller agrees or does not agree to allow prospective purchasers to enter the property as specified below. And the broker, that's us, has provided the seller with a coronavirus property entry advisory and declaration. That's form PEAD, which we'll go over next. And both the seller and the broker agree to abide by showing protocols set forth in that document and the best practices guidelines that are found on C.A.R.org, and the link's right there. If you guys haven't looked at that yet, you really should. And of course, we're staying in compliance with all of the government required stuff. So here's how it happens. They sign a statement representing that the visitor, to the best of the visitor's knowledge, is not currently afflicted with and has not knowingly within the last 14 days been in contact with someone afflicted with the COVID-19 virus, not experiencing fever or signs of respiratory illness, such as cough, difficulty breathing, so on and so forth. They provide verification that they are financially able to purchase the property, such as verification of an all-cash purchase or a pre-qualification or pre-approval from a lender or loan broker. So this is a brokerage policy for me, okay? For our brokerage, any prospective buyer needs to have a pre-approval, or you've got to see proof of funds to pay all cash before they go into a property. There is absolutely no point in allowing any kind of showing when somebody's not qualified to buy the property. So that's a brokerage policy declaration. And they have to represent that they've previously viewed the property online. I don't think that'll be a big deal for anybody. Everybody pretty much is doing that anyway. So then there are specific activities that we can undertake as agents for pre-sale and post-acceptance activity, including preparing a virtual tour, taking photographs, installing signs, doing an AVID, conducting a homeowners association site inspection. So for these, you're going to have the discussion with the seller as to which things they are willing to allow. And I think for the most part, they should be willing to allow pretty much all of this. But anybody that is entering the property needs to sign that PEAD form that we're going to go over next, okay? So you don't have to say anything here in terms of broker marketing plan. You know, I don't think that's really important for us, but if you want to, that's absolutely fine. There is also the option to temporarily withdraw the property from the market, from marketing. But in general, our feeling, as we have a brokers forum meeting every Wednesday morning with all of the local brokers, and we're all pretty much in agreement that withdrawing properties from the market is not in the seller's best interest, because we may get that person that is actually going to be able to buy. But if the seller feels more comfortable doing that, that's absolutely fine. If that's what you're going to do, I would recommend that you check the box that says the termination date of the listing agreement shall be extended by the same amount of time that the temporary withdrawal is in effect, but in no event shall the termination date be extended beyond. And you can put in a date there that seems far enough out in the future to get you some protection. What you don't want is a seller using this as a reason to decide they want to change companies or agents, okay? So there's that one. So far, so good? Can I get a thumbs up? Cool. Okay, then the last one, which is like really bizarre, is the PEAD. So this one, all it has on it at the top is the property address. So it applies to anybody that's going into the property, and make sure you put a date on it as well. It talks about the risks of exposure, talks about the stay home orders, talks about the fact that real estate sales activities are now essential services, so we have the right to be able to conduct business. And then we have this representation agreement. So by signing below, you make the following representations and agree as follows. You are either the seller, landlord, tenant, or occupant, voluntarily allowing someone to enter the property for viewing, walkthrough, inspections, or otherwise facilitating the real estate transaction, or you are a prospective or actual buyer, tenant, real estate agent, or other person whose services facilitate the completion of a real estate transaction and are voluntarily entering the property for the purpose of viewing, inspecting, or performing an activity or providing services in furtherance of a real estate transaction. Talks about understanding the dangers. Bold print, you understand that if you engage in any activities in violation of the law, including federal, state, county, or city orders, you are acting against the advice of your broker. You agree to take all reasonable and necessary precautions to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19, including but not limited to the following. Read all of that for yourselves, guys. You know, basically everyone is agreeing to take the precautions that they've agreed to take. Let me see if I can make that stop. Well, I can make most of it stop. Sorry about that. I don't know what else is ringing. Good. Sorry about that. So you're agreeing to follow all of the guidelines, law, and orders, which means nobody should be entering the property without gloves and a mask. And if you've got any indication that somebody is going to violate that, you can't let them in. Just can't. It's way too dangerous. And then we also have the agreement, declaration, and assumption of risk, which says that by signing below, you're declaring the foregoing as true, that you agree to take all recommended and reasonable actions to protect yourself and others from exposure, and that you assume the risk as applicable of entering the property or allowing someone to enter the property. You understand and agree that no one, including but not limited to real estate brokers and agents, can guarantee that you will not be exposed to or contract COVID-19. And so basically, this is as close to a hold harmless agreement as we can get. Still doesn't mean that we won't all get sued, but it's a pretty good, you know, indication. So then you print the name of the person who's going to be entering, and you know, make sure that they sign this. And if it's also, so like this is also, if you're the listing agent and the buyer's agent is going to show the house, the buyer's agent has to sign this as well as the buyer's. So we could wind up with quite a few of these forms in our files as time goes by. Make sense? Cool. Okay. Any questions about any of this from you guys? All right, I'm going to stop our recording as soon as I find the button.